Hi, David.
Steve, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. You're a busy man. Yeah, I watched your show there. You just finished the show.
Yes, with Dr. Neil McRae on. Neil's a native of Guruk, so that's been brilliant. So good to come over here and join you now.
Yeah, no, he was very good. I've seen him before. He writes for your
He does, he
website
does.
as well.
He writes for us, and he also writes for Lockdown Skeptics as well.
Yeah, I think that's where I've seen his name. I must have. How many times has he been on the show?
Neil's been on loads of times. Neil's been on
Yeah,
absolutely loads of times, but he's brilliant. He's a good guy. Neil was actually at the very first anti-lockdown stuff back in what, May would that have been, when the first big rallies took place? So
yep. Was that like the big ones down in London
that
with
was the big
David
ones
Icke
down
and all
in
that
down
stuff?
in London when David Icke first spoke, and he's certainly been proven right on a number of issues, Mr. Icke, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, he's good. Actually, I really liked him that day. Was that are you talking about the one at Trafalgar Square where he did his sort of
Yeah,
you know, rise like lions type speech? Is that the
freedom,
one?
freedom.
Yeah, freedom. Yeah, he was very good. He was very good. I thought he was the speaker of the day that day. I was really impressed by him. But no, it was a great it was a great event. Now, a couple of things. Obviously, it's a very casual chat, David. You and I
Uh-huh.
have had the good fortune to meet. We've spoken a few times, and then we had the good fortune to meet at the event in Edinburgh, and you were kind enough to film that live for us and stream it live to your D Live channel. I'll be putting links to that in the groups
Thank you.
later, okay, just to try and get some followers who are not already there. Um, I'm a relatively new convert to your stuff, but every single show, I've known about it for ages, and
Uh-huh.
you're that busy, and then lately I've been really tuning in, and then I'm sharing them like crazy, and everybody I share them with is absolutely loving them,
Good.
but they're loving them from a humour point of view as well. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I watched you singing Creep the other night, which was wonderful. And no, there's a few funny things, so it's good humoured, and I think that's really important just now.
I know. I mean, it's hard to try and keep your sense of humor in all this. I was saying earlier. I mean, I actually, being honest, I struggled with that lockdown there. February, March, April. It was
Yeah,
cold. It was wet. There was nowhere to go. And I mean, look, I know there's people a hell of a lot worse off than I am, but it was still difficult. And I'm saying I don't know if I can't do another one. I can't I
yeah, I
can't
heard
go
you
on
saying
living
that.
like this. And I
Yeah,
know people might say, well, you're just selfish. Well, I didn't choose this. Well, there was a deadly pandemic. Well, what do you want me to do about it? I'm just saying this isn't living, it's existing.
yeah, yeah. Well, you were pointing out it's the lack of restaurants and cinemas and gyms and all the things that you would normally do, and you can't turn up with 6 or 7 of your pals at a pub because there's no a pub in Scotland that really wants us turning up
It's
and
true.
massless, and that type of stuff. And it's a soulless experience now. I think we're going. We would certainly be in pubs less than you would normally be. I would say just now. Would you? Even though they're open, would you say that you're visiting them or frequenting them less?
I'm teetotal. I don't actually drink at all,
Yeah,
Steve.
good.
So I'm not a big pub lover. But I mean, I still go out for a meal. I like going out for a meal. But even then, do you know what I hate about it? I hate the fact that people working in the restaurants have to wear these muzzles
Yeah, it's
over their
annoying.
face.
Yeah,
And do you know why I hate it? Because these people they're being made to do it. And it's
yeah,
really, really wrong. These people are like being a waiter or a waitress, working in a kitchen. That's hard work, right? It's
yeah,
harder than our work. It's hot. You're dealing with customers and you've got to put a muzzle over your face. I mean,
yeah.
I just think it's inhuman. I heard a story about someone in a local cafe. They were working all day in the kitchen. They had their mask on. It got so hot and they passed out.
I know. Well, and the thing is, some of them, I mean, I would engage a lot of them. I'm sure you would. You're quite a chatty guy. I'm sure you would engage them and say, how do you feel about that mask or whatever. Some of them are saying, "No, I quite like it," and other ones are saying, "No, I hate it." And you talk to them. I mean, there's not a chance of us going out and not talking about this stuff. I would say,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
you know.
I know. I mean, as I said, I think it is just the case, though. I think the government have sort of hypnotized people so much just to think that, you know, by doing that, that you're playing your civic role, you're helping people. And it was very interesting at that G7 summit that all of the leaders there all were walking around maskless, yet the people serving the hors d'oeuvres, serving the food, were all masked up. Now,
Yeah.
even if that was the non-intentional, see if I was an advisor for Boris, or I was even one of them, I'd say, by the way, people are going to be taking photos of this. We're walking about without our masks on. If they're walking about with masks on, it looks bad. None
Yeah.
of them did that. They still had them walking about with masks. It is back to that Lord and Lord of the Manor and plebs. It's insidious.
Yeah. I think that was intentional.
Yeah.
Because they're not that daft. They know how quickly the jungle drums beat and how quickly we share things. They wanted us to see that for some reason. As you know, it's a bit of a psychological operation. It's like the dashing of hopes, right? There's something that they like doing, which is to build you up to Christmas is a good example. You're going to get 5 days at Christmas, and then
I know.
and they didn't need to. They took it away, and it was governmentally a hard thing for them to do.
I know.
You know, but they still did it because the
Yeah.
dashing of hopes was worth it to them. The
Well,
same with this Freedom Day.
yeah.
They built it up, but they wanted to dash. There must be something, if you dash the hopes long enough, and it's
Yeah.
like being pummeled in a
It puts
boxing
them
ring.
down. It brings them down.
You're more subservient. You're more
Steve, do you know
punch drunk.
who's brilliant? Laura Perrins. You ever see her on Twitter? Laura Perrins, conservative woman.
No.
She talks about this quite a lot. Is that the cruelty is done on people? Don't get that the cruelty is on purpose.
Yeah.
And you've actually summed it up perfectly there. They've done it with every single thing.
Yeah.
And it's like that scene in the film 1984. Have you seen the 1984
Yeah,
with
I love
John
it.
Hurt?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Remember when there's the three party members who were removed from all the literature, and he goes in the pub and they're sitting there and they're drinking and they're just hollowed out and they're so exhausted. That's what it's like. That's what they're doing. They're deliberately putting people down,
Yeah.
to make them feel grateful for the merest morsel. And I talk about this quite a lot, about the Tory party is very, very good at doing that. The Tory party does that. I mean, this is the thing that really grates me. I was always a Tory boy, right? I was a lifelong Tory.
Were you Labour at one point
Well,
as well?
I was. I left the Tory party in 2000 and what year was it? 2010 or 11, I think, just because I was disgusted by them. But I was always a Tory. I was always true blue, and you know, thought that was right. And I saw how the Conservative Party actually worked. I saw the people that made up the Conservative Party. So it's no surprise to see the way they've gone. But the problem is Labour would be just as bad. You know, Labour have been horrendous throughout this. And then up here, the SNP, they've just loved it. She has loved the power.
I know. It's a pantomime. It's definitely a pantomime now. And so just going back to this, so everybody who watches, that's people starting to join now. So there'll be more joining as we go. And then obviously it remains on the groups. I'll upload it to YouTube as well.
Brilliant.
With your blessing. I'll send you
Please do.
a link to it as well. And the people can watch the repeats once we're finished as well. So just going back to you're a West Coast boy like myself.
Yes,
Where are you from originally?
Renfrew. I was born in Paisley, so I'm actually a buddy. What about yourself, Steve? Where were you born?
I was originally born in Springburn.
All right.
And then dragged up in Cumbernauld. What's it called, Cumbernauld? The best advert in the world that everybody globally knows that advert. You know, what's it called, Cumbernauld? It's amazing how many people know that in America, all the rest of it. So, yeah, dragged up there, a bit of time in Bishopbriggs, bit of time in London, bit of time in Australia. So now living in Perth, so getting around, but it's good. So where are you now?
I'm still in Renfrew. I'm still in Renfrew, so
yeah,
the apple's not fallen too far from the tree. What about your politics, Steve? What's been your politics over the years?
Oh, that's a very good question. Years ago, I would say I think I was one of Thatcher's children at the time, because I liked I like the idea of get on your bike and get a
All
job
right.
and make your own luck. My pals and I, a lot of us went to London,
Mm-hmm.
David, when it was the recession in Glasgow. And the
Yeah,
recessions, which is something we have to be, uh, consider very carefully. Recessions hit very hard in
they
Scotland,
do.
you know, and when we had a recession, we just about left school and a bit, a year or two after leaving school, there was no jobs.
Yeah,
I mean, no jobs. You couldn't
yeah,
get a job for
yeah.
love nor money. And we went to London, and we were getting jobs immediately. I had two jobs. I worked in British Telecom. I worked in a builder's merchant. My brother got a job as a names taper, trained to be a names taper, and he was getting the same money as a time served joiner. Within 2 weeks, he was about 16. You know. But loads of boys for Glasgow went down to London then. Sort of streets were paved with gold type thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I like that whole get on your bike and start your own career,
Right?
and you can do it yourself thing. But see now, I mean, I look at SNP, I look at Labour, I look at them all. It is deeply disappointing. I mean, it's actually a sham now to even consider voting for any of them. I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I
Okay, because we're just talking as friends. Pop quiz. How did you vote in the independence referendum and the Brexit referendum?
in the that's a very good question. Independence, I didn't vote on that one.
Okay,
Okay. I didn't I would take independence if it was government for the people, by the
okay.
people, of the people, right? I felt we were better in the UK at that time. But see, right
Uh-huh.
now, I don't even think there's an independence or UK argument while this coronavirus nonsense is
Yeah,
going on.
yeah,
I seriously believe both of them are off the table.
yeah,
Like, there's none of them that make any sense when this is still going on.
yeah.
So Brexit, I voted against Brexit. I was quite
All right.
disappointed. Yeah, I was quite disappointed when we woke up and not
Okay.
been in Europe. But I actually see it now as being a good move, and I'm surprised that so many people voted that way.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
again, I don't trust, because of what happened in America there as well. I don't actually trust any of the voting systems either.
No, no, that's
So,
interesting. That's interesting.
so you would have been
Oh, I was a
you staunch
staunch no
union,
voter,
staunch
staunch
union. Yep.
unionist, but not out of now any real love for the United Kingdom. And again, that pains me to say that because I was always, again, true blue, believed in the UK, believed in all the institutions. And what's happened in the last year and a half, and what is really put a real sour taste in the mouth. But whilst the UK is bad, I look at what Sturgeon has done to Scotland and what she would do to Scotland under independence, and it would be guys like you and me. I know this is brutal to say. Guys like you and me would be fine, Steve,
Hmm.
but she is prepared to sacrifice the lives, the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people for her aim of independence. And she's shown how insular she wants to make Scotland, with shutting the borders and the regulations. And you see the media. I mean, I remember Scotland 20 years ago, it was buzzing. You had
I know,
financial services were booming, the oil and gas
absolutely.
industry, tourism. Look at it now. It's just dead.
Yeah, and how you breathe life back in. I mean, if you look at the psyche, David, of society, you look at this punch-drunk nature of people. The stay-at-home forever brigade. They're broken. They're if they believe what they believe, they shouldn't really leave their houses again.
Yeah, yeah,
Seriously though, they shouldn't leave their houses. You've got furlough; they're not getting their jobs back. That's yet to hit. I mean, look at what's. If you think about what's happened already, think about what's still to come, David.
yes.
Think about and we're not that far away from it. You've got um, I mean, even that announcement today, mandatory. I mean, I couldn't believe my ears today.
I know, I know,
Mandatory vaccines for
I
people,
know,
for care home workers.
I know, I
I mean, what
know.
was your
It's
thoughts on that?
frightening.
What's your? Did you? I know you.
It is absolutely vile. It really, really is. There's no words to describe that. The state should not be coercing anybody into take. But again, here's the thing. See if this was a really deadly pandemic and
Hmm.
people were dying en masse, you'd be queuing up to take the vaccine. Like,
Hmm. Well, they technically are queuing up to get anyway.
Well, I know, but no, I think they've hit a wall.
We would be though as well if you thought it was going to.
I think they've hit a bit. Well, I had Desmond Swain on the show on YouTube before we were banned, funnily enough. And he was saying, well, you know, I had it for yellow fever. And I said, well, Sir Desmond, do you know what the mortality rate is for yellow fever? I said, it's between 30 and 60% if you catch it, you know. So it's not a severe acute respiratory virus. It's a wee bit more serious than that. But like what they just think people are hesitant. No, because people aren't daft. People realise that, again, let's just say what the government are saying is right. Let's just believe that 128,000 people have died of COVID-19. The mass majority of these people were elderly. The average age is 83. By that logic, nobody under the age of 60 would do it.
Yeah.
So that's why they're not.
And even today, or was it yesterday, you've got Boris on saying, I think I was listening to Hancock today, and he was saying something like, and hospital admissions are up 50% on the previous week. Now, David, it's so low just now. It could be 20 up to 30.
I know.
But they choose the see the way they play with percentages. You know, it's not a number count. It's not 20. He's not saying, and it went from 20 up to 30 in a week. We double that. So what? No, it's went up by 50%.
Yeah.
It's a 50%. So, I mean, how do you think they managed to brainwash so many people so quickly? How have they done it?
It's a brilliant question. Well, Neil was talking about this earlier in the interview. SAGE have behavioural experts on it. I think it is part of the wider dumbing down of society, sadly. People, I know it's brutal to say again, people just aren't as bright as they once were. People used to be more intelligent. They used to be more critical thinking. So they know that. Social media has played an impact on that. Also, life being much easier, because life is easier now compared to what it was even 30 or 40 years ago. So they knew that there was a mass there. But I think it's been a mixture of so many things. Hypnosis, just constant wall-to-wall propaganda, and
repetitiveness, the way they repeat things, you know, that definitely I mean, I listen to BBC News in the car. Anytime I drive, I stick it on. Doesn't matter what time of day, David, I put that radio or that TV on, and I hear them. It's all COVID all the time, and I'm always keen to hear the start of it, just to reassure myself that they're doing it 24/7, and it's pretty much that there's almost not a time you could put that on and you're not hearing vaccines, COVID, some kind of propaganda, non-stop, wall to wall.
Yeah,
it's very, very powerful.
And it is. And again, people like yourself and myself and our viewers tonight, it's not nice to say that people aren't as intelligent, but they just aren't, and they're just not as critical thinking. And these adverts really grate with me. They really they trigger me. You know, roll up your sleeve, and when it's done, just do it. And the reason it's wrong is because I know what they are, because like you and I could be like that. Do you know what I mean? We could choose to go down that dark magic route and be like that, but we just wouldn't, because we know it's wrong.
Yeah. Have you seen that advert with the sea shanty thing? Just get your jab and go. You didn't happen to see that?
No, I've not. But it sounds as bad as it sounds.
I'm going to send you after this, David.
Please do.
It's just laughable, mate. It's actually embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be in a country where that is an attempt to make people take some kind of medical procedure, and that it would actually influence. I mean, you get people dressed up as sailors singing a song, "Get your jab and go."
I've seen it. I've seen it. It was on GMB.
It's just embarrassing.
I won't tell you what I actually said when I watched it. It was a wee bit controversial, but as well.
No, fire away, mate. Don't worry.
It's not appropriate. The thing as well about Scotland, this is what really, really grates me. I was always a proud Scot. Like I would never say I was a Scot now, because I'm so ashamed of it. Scots invented the modern world. You know, John Logie Baird, the television, Alexander Fleming, penicillin, Alexander Graham Bell, the telephone, you know, Tar McAdam as well, all these amazing things. You went to any big company, Andrew Carnegie, one of the biggest industrialist philanthropists, came from Dunfermline.
Yep,
you know, and we had the best education system in the world. We did by a mile. Yep. And then
they
John
sent all the
Knox
royals
said
here,
that.
didn't they? They sent the royals here to get educated.
And look at it. Look at what has happened, and look at the way Sturgeon has assumed that. And we used to have a really diverse, dynamic press as well. I mean, I look at the Herald now, and I just think to myself, this is just it's terrible to watch. And like STV as well. I just it's brutal, but it's just horrible. It is horrible to witness.
Yeah. Let's ring fence the press one and come back and put a bit of time into that one, because we do a bit of work with trying to influence people who read some of these publications, for want of a better word. If you look at Scotland being a nation of critical thinkers, now you can't even have a question about this. Like we used to be able to critically think and be able to ask questions. You know, that's what got us these great inventions, these great inventors of our time. They did those things. They asked the right questions. We used to be able to sit and debate things. You know, Scotland was a place you could sit in a pub and have a debate about Celtic, Rangers, you know, religion, all sorts of things, politics. You know, and we could actually talk about them without jumping down each other's throats, because you could have a deep and meaningful about them. You cannot have those conversations now.
It's a hate crime now. It's hate speech, you know. And Hamza Yusuf brought in those laws as well. And again, that's been such a brutal suppression of free speech. As you said, like Alexander, you know, Graham Bell could have just says, well, you know, we use that. Remember they used to just telegraph. You know, they just used to push the button. What? That's just fine. We'll just accept that. Well, the government tells us that's fine, so we'll just accept it. You know, and it's horrible. It really, really is. As you say, the ability to have a chat. And I mean, I grew up in the west of Scotland. I'm a big Rangers fan. I had loads of friends that were Celtic fans, and yeah, it got a bit tasty sometimes, but on the whole, it was 90-minute bigotry, and then we never had the problems they had in Northern Ireland. You know, the real deep-seated, you know, like outright hatred of one another. I mean, there are pockets here, but again, just sunlight's the best disinfectant. You know, instead of having people like scared and people, it's horrible.
Yeah, no, and it's. I mean, we grew up in a town where it was at first it was very much Celtic, Rangers, you know, Catholic Protestant schools. I'm the opposite side of the fence to you, but it doesn't really matter. And you know what? I don't actually care now, David. I don't even. I couldn't tell you the team. I couldn't tell you the next game or anything. I used to go to the games. Don't bother now at all. When we grew up, it was quite divided. See now, everybody's all together. It's much better now.
It's not.
But that's how they've moved on to other divides, because we grew out of that divide. That kept us in our box for a while. Look at the divides now. One of the biggest things I noticed, David, you get back to the indie thing and voting versus not voting, etc. I didn't have strong views on it because I didn't see the indie argument, and I'm a better the devil you know person. I looked at it and said, look, we've been united for hundreds of years. It's a terrible, my view was it's a terrible signal to send the world that we can't even put up with our divisions after all those years, and we still want to split up. How can you say to Israel and all these other countries that are all fighting, oh, just you were fighting last week, but mend your differences, and we can't do it hundreds of years later? You know, so there was an element of that in me. But the thing that I hated the most was the division. I never seen that referendum was incredible.
It was.
I mean, I've never seen people ramming their views down your throat, and basically, if you didn't want to vote, that's the first time I've seen it. Almost the same kind of stuff, and it might have been part of this psyop that, because I don't think we were getting independence anyway then. I think that was a test to split the country, and they split us almost perfectly when you look at it. They split us right down the middle. in many ways.
It was, and it is very, very divisive, and it does remain. So I actually talk about this on the show. The expression I've kind of coined is the Lebanonization of Britain. Everybody is now split into like small sectarian camps, and I use sectarian with a small s. So you like so because people on our side, there's a mixture of people that are pro UK and pro independence, but yet we're all against the coronavirus lockdown. And then even within that, and everything's just breaking it down. And then you've got all the like trans rights, and then there's obviously issues around Islamic extremism as well in parts of the UK. It's a terribly divided country that we have now. And then likewise, a really bad problem is the gap between the sort of middle management public sector worker and the entrepreneurial class, who have been devastated over the last year and a half.
David, do you watch Sturgeon and Co when they're on doing their briefings?
I try not to, but obviously you do hear it. And this is a true story. I've got all my channels on the radio. She came on in the radio, and I went to go into other things. She was on exactly the same time. So I listened to a bit about what she says, and I keep up to date with it, but I obviously as minimal as possible.
Yeah. Did you ever think she was a good politician?
I think yes. I still think she's a good politician, which is part of the problem. I don't underestimate Sturgeon. She is head and shoulders the best politician in Scotland. I don't say that out of any praise of her. It's just a fact.
She's very polished, but when you've got eyes to see and ears to hear, it's very hard to listen to when you know. But you can appreciate how polished the act is to the untrained ear in many ways.
It is, and I mean, I remember her when in '98 when she won, and you see all the makeovers, and she's been groomed for that position. It was a bit like back in 2014. Salmond was by far and away the most capable politician in British politics. He was head and shoulders above Ed Miliband and David Cameron. And again, this is the problem in the Scottish Parliament. I mean, look, who's in charge of the Tories? Douglas Ross, Willie Rennie at the Lib Dems. I mean, Anas Sarwar's a nice guy, but again, it's
very meek, very meek.
He is, and Sturgeon just dominates them all. She does, and the media and the establishment are so compliant to her. And she is like a mini dictator. She is a dictator now.
Yeah, and I think it goes to all their heads, actually. I mean, it's like Hancock. Remember that day he was laughing on GMTV, and it was really embarrassing, right? Now, he meant that and just couldn't keep it. It's like school, David, when you were laughing at somebody and you couldn't keep it in. I mean, he was definitely laughing there, but trying to put it on with tears.
The other one as well, I thought really gave it away about Hancock was the Dominic Cummings thing. He said, "I didn't manage to catch it. I'm too busy saving lives." That's the mentality of these people. Like they do think they are God. And like you'd Pastor O'Malley at that. I mean, I'm a Christian, and we are now in a post-Christian society, and where the state is God-like. What they actually think they are saving lives. He's not.
I know. It's funny you mentioned Pastor O'Malley. I mean, he was one of the guests at the May Day gathering. Was that your first event?
It was my first event. It was brilliant.
That kind of surprises me because I saw you speaking, and I'd phoned you about that actually. I saw you speaking. Piers Morgan was there. Piers, yeah.
Yeah, I went down and spoke. That was the first big one. There was the first big one out in Scotland. It was the first big one.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was good. But how good was O'Malley?
Brilliant, very, very good, and spoke very well, and all the speakers that day. I mean, it actually went on for something like 3 hours, didn't it? But it was very engrossing. Nobody, like, I wasn't bored. Like, I've been to a lot of things, and I wasn't bored. I listened to everybody.
Yeah, well, that was good. I think all the people who started at the event were there at the end, which I suppose is a good sign.
It
But it was
was.
nice. It was nice that we finished with the Old Lang Syne and all of that kind of stuff, and it was a good uplifting day, I think, for a lot of people. But see the thing about O'Malley's speech, very, very powerful,
Yes,
right?
it was.
And it resonated with people. You know, you talk about religion and religion not being a major factor in people's lives. And I think a lot of the people who were, I got emails and messages after it saying, where does he, where are his services I need to go? And, you know, pe- people wanting to get back into that side of it again. You said you're quite religious, David.
I wouldn't say I'm religious. I would say I'm a Christian. You know, I believe that Jesus is our savior and died for humanity, and that to me is pivotal. You know, because I believe in the crucified God, that God made flesh and died for humanity, and if we believe in him, we will be saved by him, and hopefully when we die, we'll go to a better place. But as I said, the message for me about Christianity is very much that God has made the sacrifice for us. He's shed the blood that we can live. And I think for a lot of people, for me, that's very comforting. But a lot of people now don't like that message because we've been taught that we're the center of the world, that we're the center of the universe, that everything revolves around us. So it's, you know, it's almost rebellious to say, well, actually, we're not really in charge.
Yeah. And David, so tell me about the UNN network and how you set that up and when did it start and, you know, how you built the team up there.
Well, it was about 3 years ago. I was involved with a pro UK campaign. We had a bit of a falling out, and and I left them, and then I set up a pro Brexit campaign. And during that, I realised the way the mainstream media was going. That was maybe what, 2018, and I saw what the media were doing over Brexit. I saw the lies, I saw the smears, the way that people concerned about mass immigration were just called racists. People that were worried about anything were just smeared. The metropolitan elite. And we set up UNN three years ago. One of the first things we actually covered was when Tommy Robinson was arrested and put in jail. And I said at the time, and I still say it, look, I understand Tommy Robinson is certainly not everybody's cup of tea, but he was lied about by the mainstream media. He was
Yeah.
slandered, he was smeared.
You couldn't
And
say anything in his defence at all,
no,
or you'd be attacked.
no. And look where we are now. Look
Yeah.
where we are now. And again, when we started, deplatforming was just kind of coming in. Like, people were starting to get removed off social media. Now we're in a position where the sitting president of the United States was
I know.
removed from Twitter,
It's,
Facebook.
I
The
know.
power that it with, you know, and that's how far we've traveled in 3 years. So the scary thing is, well, where are we going to be in 3 years' time from that?
Yeah. Well, that's a very good point. And you chose D Live then as a platform of choice, but
Yes,
you were on YouTube, but did you get deplatformed there?
we got banned off
Right.
YouTube.
What was that? What
UK,
was that for?
we
Was
had
it three strikes and you're
three
out?
strikes and we were out, all for medical misinformation. Now
Even
we
if you say the
always,
words COVID-19, if you
that's right.
say, oh, no, I won't say it, but I mean, I can't remember who it was. Actually, David Scott of the UK
Yeah,
column, right? I interviewed David, and we did not say anything majorly
no,
controversial. We did not say anything about medical advice or
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
but we did talk about the quote COVID thing, and
Mm-hmm.
we mentioned the words. That was enough. I uploaded it to YouTube. They banned it straight away.
Yeah,
You're not putting it
yeah.
up. So
You've got a position now on these major platforms where they've got algorithms. So if you say convid, they'll hear that word and immediately
absolutely.
pop your video, and all these major platforms are done now. Luckily enough, like UK Column, I mean, UK Column. I remember when we started, there was UK Column, and UK Column, we actually used to get more views than UK Column maybe about a year and a half ago. And then obviously when this hit, you know, UK Column provided real in-depth, critical analysis. I mean, they just boomed on
Yeah.
YouTube, and their numbers were massive. The viewings they were getting, you know, and again, their production quality is excellent. Brian Gerrish, Mike Robinson, Patrick Henningsen, and David Scott, and you know, they did so well. And obviously, they had to go. They couldn't be on
Yeah.
YouTube because, again, they were better than the MSM, and everything UK Column and we spoke about was all verified. You know,
Yeah.
we would give our slant on it, but we wouldn't just make stuff up. We wouldn't
Yeah.
just
But there's
lie.
no defence. I mean, where do you go, David? Like, how do you can't defend it. You can't take them to court. You just have,
No.
we're almost forced to accept it. And that's where they've got us because they know that.
Yes,
You know,
they do. And that's that's been part of the globalist plan, is to have
yeah.
all these big platforms and have everybody on. It's like, even I remember on Facebook. Facebook used to have a thing called well, they still got your timeline, which was actually based on time. So it was when people posted things. Now it's all algorithms. They decide if you go on Facebook or you go on Twitter, they are deciding what you have to see.
Yeah.
And that's the power they have, is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and and that's why we need to get off these plans. I mean, we're still on them, unfortunately, but we need to get off them.
yeah, well, that's right, and I don't know whether your telegrams. I mean, people are creatures of habit, right?
They
Very,
are.
very, very much so. Um, it's like your show, David. You always sit on the left. You've got your screen up there. It's always a good laugh. It's you cover the news in depth. You're quite prepared to put your opinions out there. It's a format. It's digestible.
That's right.
It's it's
Thank
nice
you.
and nice and samey, and it's a comfort factor. The column's the same. Brian Gerrish is always sitting on the left. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
it's,
yeah, yeah.
and they bring Alex and David in. It's just and the same background all the time. People, it's like the BBC, so that kind of format works. You know, you've got the green screen thing there.
That's
They've got
right.
the green screen thing as well. It works really well because we need something that looks like the BBC to compete against the BBC.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. I've been following the GB News now. I think the way they've been attacked to try and get their advertisers pools disgraceful. But I mean, GB News was launched with like a 60 million budget, and I mean, their audio is terrible,
Hmm.
and their lighting's really, really bad as well. And again, I'm very, very surprised at that, because they're actually things that you can get right. So again, it's not how much money you throw at something, it's the passion. Now, I think GB News is a good thing.
Hmm.
I don't think they're going to talk about the vaccines, because they're obviously Ofcom regulated. But even if that shifts the sort of Overton window and branches out, and I mean, they have got Dan Wooten on, and Dan Wooten's very lockdown skeptic,
Hmm.
and that's good. But I mean, the way people have had a meltdown over GB News, like I mean, Koperberg, the company's stopped advertising at IKEA. But I actually did say at the time, one of the issues GB News would face is all these far left organisations would target their advertisers, and they would do it on Twitter.
Hmm.
And again, I think the model moving forward is smaller platforms, building your own audience, and building community building. I think is the way forward. And I know you're very good at that, and you do a lot of that. You've got a very good community there, and it is almost church-like
Hmm.
in a way, because you know, you had your minister or your whatever, and then you had your flock and your congregation, and they would gather. Things don't really change that much. They just maybe come in different guises.
Yeah, I was just looking at this. One of our audience is saying that I need a new background plant, Stephen. It just reminds me. It reminds me, David. I was watching one of your shows the other night, and some of your audience said something about one of the guests, and it threw you into a wee rant. But you covered it brilliantly. But you went off on one.
I
You
know, I
know the
was
show.
annoyed.
Yeah, no, but I know you were really annoyed, and that's the good thing about your show. You're not holding back on
No,
anything. If you,
no,
as I
no.
said,
Like,
I watched you singing "Creep" the other night. It was a beautiful rendition. It's one of the best
thank you.
versions I've heard of it. It was lovely.
Thank
But
you. I appreciate that.
but
I think. Do you know, the other thing is as well, Steve? And what you see with me is what you get.
definitely.
And like, you're the same as well. And the guys at UK Column are the same, because there's a market for that, because so much of everything is just utter BS. It's all false. There's not There's no real, like, they don't. It's like walking about wearing a fucking face mask. It doesn't do anything. It's false. It's just a
I know.
lie.
Well,
Stop
that's right.
it.
That's why you can't deal with them. That's why it's hard. That's why it's hard to stomach now. It's really getting beyond the joke.
It
I was out,
is.
I was out in Asda today. I went to a few shops today actually, and they were all very cool with it. And it's like, if people knew how easy it is to walk about shops without a mask, they would just do it. And
I
if they
say
knew
this.
if they knew how liberating it was, they would just do it.
Everyone has an exemption if you want one. Like,
Absolutely.
go and take it. Everyone's got an exemption.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be a very personal thing. You don't even need to. Yeah, that just if you don't want to wear a mask, just say I'm exempt. That's it.
Correct.
It ends there.
And it's none of anybody's business. Do you know when this first came, and this they never spoke about this? A group of one of the worst ones was for women
Hmm.
who had been raped, because during, I mean, obviously I don't know much about it, but during the act of rape, what tends to happen is the man will hold his hand
I've heard that. Yep,
over the woman's face. So wearing a
and it brings
mask
it back.
brings that back.
I've heard that a few times actually. People have said that to me and messaged me on that. Now you think about it. Nobody, in no shop assistant in Asda or guy on the door deserves to hear that story.
Yeah,
Therefore, no mask. We don't ask. The government have put it up on their website. Do not ask people if I am exempt. Worst.
that's
Some
it.
some some people in our groups, David, would say you don't need to say that, right? But I'll tell you right now, there are people in our groups wearing masks going to shops, guaranteed, because they started wearing masks. We've probably never worn masks. I've never worn a mask.
I openly admit I did for the first week. I did
Yep.
to start, and the reason I did so was because I didn't want to inconvenience the staff
Yeah.
members.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought,
It's
well,
just
do
good.
you know
It's
what?
just good manners. It's manners
That,
that
that,
they're playing on. Really.
that's what that was. But then when I realized, after about a week, I realized this is a load of BS, and I saw about the exemptions and how it came in, and I said, look, and then I saw what it was being done for. It was being done as an instrument of social control.
Yep.
And that's the most nefarious part of the mask wearing. It, as I said, you see people walking up and they get the mask out, they get it ready, and then they put it on. And like, I was in Waitrose the other week, and it is really that middle class, that smug middle class. You know, they were masked up right up. You know, it was right up, and they all had them on, and they all had their own bespoke masks
Hmm.
as well. And it, oh,
It's horrible. Uh, and there's loads of them. But as I said, if people could, you know, if they could find the way, find some people have started early, David, and they wore it, and they're in a local community, and the shop's seen them wear it, and now they think, well, are you suddenly exempt? You weren't exempt last week, or you weren't exempt for the last 15 months. But this is you won't get asked.
people need to not be scared. Like, as I say, they need to not be scared. And if you are questioned, all you need to say is, I am exempt.
Yeah.
And
Why?
that's
But
it.
I posted on this the other day actually, and I wouldn't mind getting your views on it, David. They operate. We spoke about how have they managed to brainwash so many, right? And I don't think we've covered that off fully, right? But there's because it's too hard, because it's been 30 years in the making. It's probably been hundreds of years in the making to be able to do this to us, but they've managed it. No matter which way they've done it, they have actually managed it. Now, we at the end of the day are in a position where fear is their control mechanism.
Correct.
Now we understand that the people who are scared of COVID are vibrating in fear. They wake up and they're scared, and they're scared to touch things, and they want to rush to get the vaccine, or they're going to die, and the Delta variant's going to sneak out under their bed and get them at night, and there's a million things, but they've got control over them with fear. But to a certain extent, and I posted on this, and I just like to hear your view on it. They've got us on fear as well, right? Because we're scared of getting arrested at protests. You're scared of your your kids getting taken away. You're scared of having to take your kid out of school. You're scared of mandatory vaccines, no jab, no job. You're scared of never being able to travel again and see your relatives. So we're all living in a different type of fear.
I think you're bang on there. It is a very fear based, and it's also a very guilt based society. Now, Steve, you take this how you will, but I actually say it's actually a very Catholic thing because, you know, Catholic guilt.
I get the Catholic guilt. It's mother's guilt. It's an amazing thing, and it works like a charm.
That and I mean, obviously, the UK, what the UK was a Reformed Protestant nation. Now, I'm not going to eschew the values of Protestantism over Catholicism, but you know, you look at the Reformation, and we had the Enlightenment, and other European nations didn't. But as I said, there's something very, very. There is an element of Catholicism to this, or religiosity, because you've got your Chris Whitty and your Patrick Vallance. They're like the bishops or the high priests, and a doctor is like the priest. Now, once upon a time, you weren't allowed to question the priest. Like if you questioned the priest, then you were committing blasphemy. To question a doctor, to question a medical professional, now that's blasphemy. To question the BBC is blasphemous. There's something very religious about all this. COVID is a religion.
Yeah. I was posting. We've got a little subgroup of our group, and we go into some of the media channels and we represent our position, David. You know, we see these ridiculous, you know, Edinburgh Live or Daily Record, and they post these things. You know, they might post an article, David. For talking's sake, they did one like this the other day. Will you still wear your mask even when you don't have to? Even when right? And the amount of people who are saying, "Yeah, I'll wear. I've got asthma and I prefer it," and all that. you wouldn't believe some of the things. So we sort of pile into these. You know, there's about 200 of us in a group, and you know we've probably got a hardcore of 60, 70 of us. We'll pile in and we try and dominate the conversation.
That is brilliant activism, Steve. And I'm not just saying that to suck up to you, but see see in terms of morale boosting, and that's really, really good. Dominating these comment sections is very important.
Well, we've flipped polls and all sorts of things, David. You know, and just making sure that we're actually being represented because we're on it. You know, we're seeing it happening, but we have some amazing conversations. It's a good laugh, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
you have some great fun doing it, you know. But I mean, we could do with 500 people doing that. We could do with everybody. See, do you know what your dilemma is, David? Back to this: a nation of critical thinkers and guilt. You know, back to this fear and guilt, right? There's people who would agree with something that you or I might post on our Facebook proper, but they won't even put that little like.
No, they won't.
Because just that like is stating your opinion.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be, so they're just silent.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can live like that, just being completely silent on this important subject matter. And the problem is, David, as well, we become. Somebody used to say to me years ago, I was a work bore because I was always talking about business and work and all the rest of it. I'm a COVID bore now. like there's groups of people who just they probably prefer I didn't turn up because it's guaranteed to come round. I mean, I can't wait for the conversation to get round of it. Everything else is just gap filling until you get to it. Because what else is more? What else is small talk even valuable just now?
It's really taken over all of our lives, and it's just my jaw just drops. Like when I speak to people that I think are quite bright and they don't see this, or they can't read my jaw, as I said, my jaw just drops. And again, being brutally blunt about Scotland, I know there's a lot of good people out there, but you know, we just don't. And again, Scotland, a lot of people don't realise the Reformation in Scotland wasn't like the Reformation in England. The Reformation in England was Henry VIII. It was very top down. The Reformation in Scotland was bloody. It was brutal, and it was grassroots up. And it's just, and then you look at the working as well, like in the Upper Clyde shipbuilders. You know, there always was that radical tendency in Scotland. Now, what is being a radical, in my opinion, now is speaking out against the COVID regime. You are a real radical. You are a real revolutionary if you're doing that now.
Yeah,
that's why so few people are doing it.
Well, that's it. I mean, I wonder what percentage-wise. I wonder what percentage your sort of demographic, if you like, awakened demographic is. It'd be pretty small, David. What do you think yourself?
I would say in the UK, I think there's probably 8 to 10 million probably fully awake.
That's good. That would be.
I think that's so. That's what is a percentage. That's well, it's only 12 to 15%, and then you've got another maybe 15 to 20% skeptical, and then 10 or 15% don't know, and I'd say about 45, 50% are fully on board. But that's dwindling. We're chipping away at like nothing's going in the other direction. Like nobody's becoming more supportive of lockdowns. Everybody's becoming less supportive of lockdowns.
Yeah. David, what do you see? What's his name? The guy on YouTube. He's very, very good. I forgot his name, but he does these solutions series. I can't believe I forgot his name because I really like him. But he does these sort of solutions series, and they're really brilliant. Maybe one of the audience will remind me who it is, but he's on all the time. I cannot remember. It's on the tip of my tongue. Doesn't matter. He does these things about solutions. You've got protests. You've got what you do. You've got groups. You've got fighting back. You get writing letters to schools. What do you if you were charged with finding the solutions to this, right? And you had a big army of people behind you, what direction would you lead it in? What do you think are proper ways to end this thing once and for all and quickly?
If you look at any movement that's been successful in securing a long-term stable peace, it's always been peaceful. Sometimes people don't want to hear that. They want to hear that, there needs to be a Jesus himself said, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You look at Gandhi in India, who was actually the best example of non-violent resistance, and what Gandhi achieved. And obviously afterwards there was the bloody civil war with Pakistan, but Gandhi's a good model. Martin Luther King as well. Martin Luther King is a controversial figure for many, but he always eschewed peaceful, dignified, and the images of people wearing suits standing there with dogs being set on them. Look at how history judges. Like at the time, most people supported the police and the authorities, whereas now history looks back on Martin Luther King as a visionary for civil rights. So I think it has to be peaceful, and I think we have to just reach a critical mass of people. And another good example is the fall of the Soviet Union. That all came when the Berlin Wall fell. And that just happened. I mean, it had been years in the making, like underground groups, people meeting up, people sending Bibles, and then, the economy stagnated, and all of a sudden people got out and said, look, we can't live like this anymore. And I think you'll reach a critical mass of people. I think protesting outside the parliaments is good. And I think, I think it has to be done in London. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but London really still is the seat of power. And
it's kicking off in London. I mean, now they're guaranteed 500,000 every time. There was a time where they weren't getting that, and they were getting dispersed in the same way as we were in Scotland, David. So at the end of the day, that you can't break that crowd up now. So they're going to get their demonstration done. They're going to get their event underway every single time. I mean, you mentioned you were going to go to one coming up. Is that right?
I'm going down on the 21st, and that is, Robert, I see your comment. Thank you. That's it's just that London is still, as you said when you were a young man, you went down to London, Steve. London is still the seat of power.
Yep.
And it is where decisions are fully made. And like as I said, it'll change from there. So if you could get, like, and I think it does have to, like, hopefully on the 21st, if we could have 40,000 people outside Parliament on Monday.
I think they'll get that, no bother. I think they'll get that.
That's big. And then on the 26th, if you have another 500,000 people out, that's really, really, really big. But as I said, any other movement that's brought change, it always happens in the capital. Like leading back to East Germany, I mean, the Berlin Wall didn't fall in, Hamburg, or other parts of East Germany. It fell in Berlin because that was the capital. Martin Luther King's always known for the big speech he did on the mall in Washington with it, so the capital's where the action is. And I know it's difficult because people don't have the money, they don't have the time, they don't have the resources. But I think as well, Steve, they'll reach a stage in Scotland where we will need to get out in front of Holyrood. But I still see the Scottish Parliament as subservient to Westminster, and they'll follow the lead of it. So say things all start crumbling down at Westminster, she'd be hard pushed to say, well, we're going to keep it going, because people would be here. Well, they've done it there, so why would we do it then?
But she's done that with masks, so masks for children, they get rid of it, and she kept it going. She plays a little cruel game of one-upmanship, and she's getting away with it.
It's pathetic.
Yeah, she's got more clout with what people sometimes call the cult followers of Sturgeon, and I'm in a few groups, I'm in one group in particular which I go in and troll occasionally, but it's absolutely horrible. First Minister of Scotland, what a group! I'm telling you, they will eat their own. Yeah, you say one word out of line and you will get attacked by 200-300 people. You get kicked. You'll be chased off the site.
Yeah.
And they call them. What's the word they call them? They've got a name for them. Union. No, it's not.
Cybernats.
No. There's a unionist word that they call them. I can't remember what it is. It's just as soon as you say anything, you're accused of it immediately.
Yeah. It's a total cult. A cult of Nicola, and Nicola's brilliant, and Nicola's wonderful, and it's terrible. I mean, it really, really is. I mean, I was never a supporter of devolution, Steve, and I'm still not a supporter of devolution. That's why I don't really listen to what they say.
Someone's saying that's
a yun. Yeah, that's what they call it. Pro UK user, pro UK person. But again, there is that sort of smug feeling amongst I understand why people consider independence. I get that. I'm not, like I said that during the referendum. Look, I get it. It's not as if it's all singing and dancing, but it is like the COVID cult. They are and the SNP have totally they've loved COVID. They've loved it. She has loved it, and her supporters have loved it as well, because it is that chance to virtue signals. Well, look at me masked up. Look at me social distancing. I mean, Sturgeon, remember she never met her sister for a year.
And then they get the photographs the other week there, and they were loving it. Everybody was liking it and sharing it. It was just horrible to see. David, you sometimes talk about soy face on your show. And it was very funny. I watched one the other night, and there's an image that you pull up. Who is that character?
If you just Google soy face, his face will come up. It's that
a guy with a beard, isn't it?
It's a guy with a beard, and they've got glasses, and they've got that sort of look. They do it. It wasn't me that. I mean, it was Paul Joseph Watson that it was like a big thing, but they're still about, and you see them, and these people, they're so smug, and I wear my mask to help everyone, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and with regard, there was one that you did, which was really good, and it was one of the flights, and they were all going to, I think it was Portugal, one of the first flights that was leaving Britain. Yeah. And it was very, very, very sheepish people.
It's terrible.
And you actually nailed it that night, because
thank you.
You called them out and you were laughing, but you were almost crying at the same time. I know. It is laughable, but it is.
It's a shame.
It's gut wrenching as well. And then we're there, and we're in this horrible situation. Where do you see if you had to predict where this goes in timelines from here, right? Where do you see the next few moves going in this chessboard? What do you think? What do you think's on the horizon?
Somebody in the chat says, "Didn't the poll tax riot sort the poll tax out?" I'm not being a smart aleck, but that's actually not true. The reason the poll tax was withdrawn was because nobody was paying it. So it was a pointless. I mean, obviously the scenes in Trafalgar Square and everywhere were horrendous, and it was a catalyst for it. But the fundamental issue was that people weren't paying it. So you couldn't collect it. The warrant sales were bad. So that's why the poll tax fell. I think what's going to happen, Neil was talking about this as well, we're going to get this illusion of freedom over the next 2 to 3 months. Then come August, September, they're going to be talking about, well, you know, the NHS is under pressure. We've got this backlog. The flu season's starting. There's a new variant. They'll want to renew the Coronavirus Act 2020 till March. They'll renew it for another 6 months. That's when I think we just have to say, no, we're not doing this anymore. And that might mean stopping paying council tax. I mean, I say to everybody right now, stop paying your TV license. Just cancel it right now.
Yeah.
That's one thing that you can do without any problems. Cancel your TV license right now. Council tax is slightly different. Again, the problem is people can't just opt out of NI or payroll tax because it gets deducted at source. But I mean, these are things that need to be looked at. Like with Matt Hancock said today that people with a respiratory virus who haven't taken the vaccine shouldn't get prioritised for treatment. Well, why the hell should anybody pay their national insurance anymore if you're prepared to discriminate against us? So I think there's a lot of tools in our arsenal, and people talk about go slows driving in the roads. Like, remember the fuel protests back in 99, was it 98, 99? They were very, very effective. You know, they made a big, big difference.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would be nice to think that something would make a difference, because this train is coming at us really fast just now. What's your thoughts on the way they seem to be telegraphing the rollout of this experiment to kids 12 and above?
I think it's disgusting. I really, really do. I think it's absolutely scandalous. When the vaccines first appeared, I was quite agnostic about it. Because again, my fundamental opinion is if you want to take a medical procedure, that's really not my business. And when it was first brought out, it was said that it will be the vulnerable who take it. So look, I don't agree with it, but I understand the logic that if you're over 70 or vulnerable, that you might take it. There's no reason for anybody under the age of 60 to be taking it if you're fit and healthy. There is definitely zero way any child from again, even if you're a believer in the COVID cult, if you believe all the PCR tests, if you believe Whitty and Valence, there's still zero justification for 12 to 18-year-olds taking this. It's experimental. No one knows the long-term impacts of it. You've got AstraZeneca that's caused blood clots. People have died. An 18-year-old girl died in Italy. It's been suspended in under 60s. So the AstraZeneca has, and again, it's even based on the statistics. Why would you play Russian roulette? People say, oh, well, there's still more chance of dying of COVID. No, vaccines shouldn't kill people. They should protect you.
Well, we don't know. We don't know anything yet. And the problem is it's not a one-off or 2 doses and you're out.
No.
We're talking boosters now. We're talking some kind of passport regime, app regime, travel punishment for not having it, which means you're in for another 3 next year. If they get their way, David, it's very much looking like that, which means more fear coming. You know, and you can see them lining it up now, because you don't get people rolling up their sleeves without fear of something.
I couldn't believe it. They offered my wee boy's 4 now. I remember when he was 2, they were wanting him to take the flu jab. And I was ridiculous. Like, what? Why would a 2-year-old take a flu jab? Like, I was always brought up, like, when you're young, you take your vaccines because, and look, as I said, if people choose not to vaccinate their children, it's really none of my Nelly. It's none of my business. If that's their choice, fine. It's their kids. But I was brought up, you take your vaccines when you're young because your immune system needs a bit of a help. Once you become an adult, you have a fully functioning immune system. That then kicks in. Nobody, like, they're wanting kids flu vaccinated now. There's no reason for that.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
It's like I talk about it as well. It's like these gastric bans. It's like the people who, they're saying to people who have problems with food and diet that we'll give you this gastric band and that'll immediately solve all your problems. It doesn't work like that.
I was going to crack a joke there, David, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to joke about your gastric band or anything like that, or how it worked out for you or anything like that. But No, there's a lot going on. What do you think about the unemployment situation and the economical side? Because this is the sort of elephant in the room that doesn't get this. I mean, we've got so many other things, but that's looming, isn't it? That's
It
coming up
is.
like a
It
train.
is. I mean, I think you're going to have inflation. I think inflation is going to come. I think
They're
you're
already
gonna
putting that on the news anyway. They're telegraphing the inflation. We're getting talk of interest rates again, and that's that little Trojan horse of debt in your house, and they just dial up the interest rates. They know they've got us all with that as soon as they do it.
yeah. I think you've got inflation. I think unemployment as well is going to be a major issue, and they're going to bring in universal basic income as well. I don't know about have I left? Have I gone?
No, no, you're here. You're here.
All right, I don't know. I don't see me on the screen anymore. Am I still there?
I can see you. You've frozen, and we can still hear you. Sorry, can you still hear me, guys? Tell me in the comments if you can hear me. I think David's just coming back.
Okay. How's that? Am I back again?
You're back in the room.
Yeah, I
Back
don't
in the room. I don't know what happened there.
know.
Good.
I think you're going to have inflation. I think inflation's going to be the big thing that's going
Yeah.
to happen. And we're in this crazy time. Like, how can you have all this happen and not to have mass unemployment? Well, furloughs stop that, but I think inflation's going to kick in, and that'll be really big in the next couple of years, and that'll really hit home soon.
Yeah. Habits have changed a lot, haven't they, David? I mean, like the way, I mean, you're a guy who still wears suits and things, and it's great. It's great to see. But I mean, I used to wear suits to work. I mean, the chances of me buying a suit again, unless it's for a funeral, is next to zero now. And
I
shirts and
know.
ties, I used to spend a lot of money. I mean, I wouldn't do it. Clothes I don't buy in the same way. Don't even have the same thought process towards it. You know, habits are changing really, really fast. I don't think we're actually seeing what an economy looks like. You've got pent up demand, but I think once people realise the pubs are crap and they're not worth going to, and you know they've built a little man cave in their garden, and it's actually a better place to spend time and watch the football with your pals and things like that. I think slowly but surely. I mean, there wasn't pubs weren't making a fortune anyway
No, 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 no.
before this.
None. This is the thing. None of these businesses are actually making any money. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think they're actually making any money, and it's all just printed money. It's not real. This is not real. This economy is fake.
yeah.
It is a fake economy built on. I mean, the Bank of England increased their balance sheet from 350 billion to 750 billion. So that's 400 billion pounds. They've just been created out of thin air. Like, that's why. And then borrowing as well, and then you've got house prices are rocketing. So there already is ramifications of this, because if you're trying to get on the housing ladder, it's impossible. If you're a young person want to try
Yeah.
and buy a house, I mean, house prices are way too high. It's crazy.
Oh, the house, but that's a sign of a bubble, isn't it? You
It
know,
is.
the runaway house prices. I mean, there's absolutely no upward pressure on house prices just now. There's a bit of nesting going on. People try to get to where they want to be before the crap hits the fan. They don't even know that, but that's why they're doing it. But there's nothing pushing those prices up other than a bubble.
Yeah. That's what it is, and
The wages
supply
aren't
and
there. The,
demand, and
the bonuses aren't there, David.
well, the thing is, I remember 2008. I remember the 2008 recession, and it was bad. A lot of people lost their jobs, people lost their houses. Why didn't they just do that then? Like, I mean, obviously they did create money out of thin air, but why didn't they just do that then? They've got a taste for it. I think as well, like the whole central banking. I mean, we could spend 2 hours discussing that, but it's going to collapse eventually,
Absolutely.
because you just can't have a position where all the money is everyone's working for the public sector, or everyone's getting paid for the government. You need people to generate revenue,
But there
to
was a
pay
time
tax.
when we grew up. I mean, my friend who's probably watching this, he got a job in the unemployment centre. That was one of the few jobs you could get
Yeah,
dishing out the
yeah,
unemployment, but it was seen as a job for life pension. I was quite jealous at the time when he got this job because there was nothing else about, and that was a horrible time when people, their only job was to work for the government dishing out unemployment. David, just going back to something there. Why didn't they? If all of this is to save the NHS, and if you think about the money that they spent, why not China can build a hospital in 10 days. They can build a bridge in 10 days. Why not just build
Well,
50 more hospitals and
so
employ,
did we. So did we. We built a hospitals
and
across the
took it
UK.
down?
Nobody ended up needing them. It's again, it's these big grandiose projects. I mean, I'm not like an ultra libertarian that believes in no government, but I don't think the government is really I don't think they're your friend.
Yeah.
It's like, but again, see, instead of building more hospitals, why don't we get people being healthier? Why don't we get people eating better? Why don't we get people eating better food, better fresh? I mean, look at the west of Scotland. What's the average life expectancy of the west of Scotland? 60. And they say that's down to poverty. Poverty does play an aspect, but in my opinion, poverty isn't just economic. There's poverty of intelligence. There's poverty of ambition. There's poverty of well-being. You know, there's a whole lot to that. But I think these people now just think if you throw money at a problem, that's the answer. It doesn't work like that. You could give everybody £1 million tomorrow, and everyone would be a millionaire, but the price of everything would rise to meet it. So it's weird. It's just weird.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing's going a bit crazy just now. Now, I'm running slightly over. So,
Sure.
David, I think that's probably a good point for us to wrap up.
Brilliant.
We've had a good chat. We've covered
Brilliant.
religion. We've covered soy. We've covered how you get started, politics, independence, UK.
Yeah.
I think we've covered most of the things that I would have wanted to speak to you about. So we could chat
Brilliant.
a lot
Sure we could.
longer, but I'm just conscious of the good people watching this wanting to get on with their night. But I hope they've enjoyed listening to us chatting tonight. And thank you again for supporting us on the gathering at Edinburgh, and for streaming that live. That was much appreciated, and for your speech. I wish we had longer that day, but that was really good. I appreciated that. It was excellent. Thank you for all you do at UNN.
Pleasure.
I love sharing your stuff, and I love the reaction I get from people. I sent it to my brother who lives in Ibiza, crying with laughter.
That's good.
And it was a great show. I mean, no, it needs to be funny. It needs to be funny these days, you know. And yours is very light. Do you know what you're tackling it with the dismay and the head in your hands, and it's laughable. You want to laugh and cry at this stuff,
You do.
and you kind of nail that really well.
Well, thank
So
you.
tip my hat to you for doing that, because
Thank
it's
you.
brilliant. I'm going to put the links here. I'm going to make
Brilliant.
sure that everybody across these two groups, as many as possible, tune into your D Live, and you've got your donations there as well, which keeps you guys afloat, doesn't it? People
we do. I mean, the long-term plan is we're going to have our own website where all our shows are going to be there, and all our things. We're probably going to do that later on in the year. And people are very generous. They support us as a monthly subscriber, and they also buy merchandise from our shop.
That's quite cheap, isn't it?
It's £4.99 a month, but all of our content, Steve, is we do an occasional premium content article on our website, but 99.9% of what we do is free for everybody, and it's people value it. And you know, again, we don't discriminate on the grounds of what you can afford and cannot, because like as I say, and I say this to everybody, not everybody has the ability to financially contribute, but see, sharing posts on social media, that makes a big difference. Telling friends and family. Like as I said, see, doing your wee group and going on the comments section, that's brilliant activism. It really is. That can really change a conversation. So that's stuff like that. It's the small things that make the difference. It really is, and stuff like that is so important.
Yeah, and there's another thing. You've met the guys at Unite for Truth. They've just put together a wee letter.
Good lads.
Good boys. They've just put in with some of the girls there, and I saw a wee video last night on it, and I shared it in the group. They've put together a wee letter for the schools, and it's a very good letter. They read it out, and it's really good as well. So we'll do a wee plug for that, and it's in the group. So as many people can take part in that as possible, and they'll probably be in touch with you, David, about that as well, because I know you had them on the show, and I watched that show. That was
good guys. Good guys, Andy. And I do say this as well to everybody. The answer does lie with you, and I know that might sound cheesy, but You are the answer to this. You taking off your mask, you cancelling your TV license, you having conversations with people, you can make a difference. And
Yeah,
that's very, very different to what the government says, which is you are just a cog in the machine and you do what you're told. What
yeah.
we're saying to our side is, look, you're the answer in all of this.
Well, it's like throughout history, your Rosa Parks and all these kind of
That's right.
situations. It's the individual standing up. There's all sorts of examples of that throughout history, and we need to look back at history. You said, peaceful revolutions or
Yeah.
peaceful activism, whatever.
Violent revolutions always end in violent overthrows, and they don't last, and they're not happy, and that's just what history teaches us. Like, look at China, like Mao, 20 million died of hunger, so that they could build modern China. And some Chinese would say, well, maybe it was worth it because it's better now, but is it 20 million dead?
Yeah,
Or like what Hitler did or what Stalin did as well. Like as I said, history doesn't tend to look fondly on these people, but those that conduct themselves, you can be assertive, you can be loud, and you can make a lot of noise. But as I said, when you start going down that, and it was the same like Mandela. I'm not a big fan of Mandela,
hmm
but when Mandela was released from prison, he took the path of peace and he avoided a civil war. And Mandela reached out to the Africans, and he reached out to the other people, and he showed that you. And again, it provided that longer. I mean, South Africa's obviously got its problems now, but these I mean, look, I'm not going to be the next Nelson Mandela or Luther King, but I just think what's going to work is a sea of humanity just saying, look, this isn't human, this is inhuman, you're scaring people, we're not doing this anymore.
yeah, good. Well, that's as good a way to end this as we could find, David. So thank you for tonight. It's an absolute
Pleasure, sir.
pleasure. You're a
Really
great
enjoyed
man.
it.
You're doing a good job. And if you hang back, and thank you to everybody for coming along and for all your great comments, and it's much appreciated.
Bye bye.
Thanks.